Mornings with Will on 531 PI.
You're listening to Pacific Mornings on 531 PI. It is 21 minutes past 7 o'clock. I'm William Terite. It's good to have your company this morning. Now, Universities Minister and Pacific People's Minister, Dr. Shane Reti, last week attended the Conference of Pacific Education Ministers in Port Moresby to collaborate on education priorities with Pacific nations and Australia. Now, the conference focused on transforming education for a better Pacific, addressing global challenges and enhancing equity and sustainability in education, all that good stuff. Who joins me now for a debrief on how it all went. Good morning to you, Minister.
Morena koutou, morena, Will.
Let's go there. In terms of, and it's not been me being facetious, but every time I see a minister jet off to these conferences, one asks, does it lead to tangible outcomes? How do you think it went?
Yes, I thought this was very important. It was important for us to continue to affirm our commitment to education in the Pacific and to share and hear from learned experiences from all of the Pacific partners. So it was very important to be there. I took away a lot of information from my colleagues around the table, particularly that almost a unanimous concern, if you like, for workforce. All of the Pacific Islands are saying that they're struggling for high quality teaching resource. And the co-host, Powell, the Vice Chancellor of the University of South Pacific, was there as well as one of the primary educators, if you like, in the region. And it was very interesting talking to him and hearing him speak about the outreach USP has into all of the Pacific nations and the ambitions they have to expand. So very important to be amongst our educational neighbours. One, to understand how we can help. And two, if there is some learnings that we can take from low resource environments and bring back home. So it was an important function.
Okay, with that in mind, you also announced a $1.5 million investment. Where's that money going? And I suppose, this government, full credit there in terms of being hell-bent on ensuring cost-saving measures. How do you ensure that this is being spent effectively?
Yep, so you can set policy initiatives when you have the data. When you have baselines, when you know exactly how many teachers, what your outcomes are like. And there is improving, but still a paucity of data across the Pacific nations. And so this was a $1.5 million contribution to UNESCO for the Global Education Monitoring Report, which particularly for this contribution will bring forward and further improve the Pacific nations' education data, entry into the system, progress through the system, those leaving the system, all that sort of important stuff that helps you form policy under the UNESCO umbrella. So a strong UN umbrella that will make sure the outcomes are there for what we're looking to contribute to.
Right. Now, cheeky of me to ask such a question, but ultimately it's great that you jetted off to Papua New Guinea for this meeting. But then there are also, inevitably those questions that educational outcomes here in New Zealand for Pacific-based New Zealand Kiwis, not that great. Should we be pumping investment there as well?
Well, look, we already do. And indeed, one of the examples I gave to the conference was the support that Ministry for Pacific Peoples has for Amanaki Enterprises out of Palmerston North, who are a spectacular organisation from an outcomes perspective, who take school age or secondary school students, particularly in the STEM subjects, have a very high conversion into NCEA in the STEM subjects, a very high conversion then on to tertiary education, again in the STEM subjects, and a very high graduating quotient as well. So it's a specific example of how we're focusing with that pivot towards an economic growth agenda, how we're focusing the education tools towards that agenda, although that was in progress even before we announced the economic growth agenda. So it's a really good example of high quality work being done in the education sector, specifically for Pacific peoples.
Awesome. Okay, look, let's turn our attention back here to New Zealand in your capacity as Universities Minister. I mean, in recent days, again, it's reared its ugly head. The ACT Party obviously has a problem when it comes to compulsory te tiriti courses, for example, at Auckland University. What's your appetite on this, given your portfolio? Do you want to see more of this, or are you suggesting that perhaps the ACT Party where we don't need such things?
So I have no concerns in as much as And then secondly, this is an operational matter for universities. And Auckland University, which is the one that's particularly been noted, have given explanations for the compulsory undergraduate course that they are requiring and how it's unique to each faculty. Having said that, again, to come back to my first point, universities have academic freedom, which is something that the ACT Party was calling for. And secondly, it is an operational issue. So I am comfortable where that is landing at the moment. I have
Okay,
asked Auckland University for more information.
okay. So just to clarify, the National Party's stance on this, I'm asking in your capacity as a National Party member, is that you are open to seeing this kind of course?
So my position is that we support academic freedom and we support this being an operational issue for Auckland University.
Okay. Look, let's also turn our attention. I mean, obviously, inevitably, our Pacific community doing it tough. I mean, Stats NZ figures aren't that flash when it comes to home ownership. I mean, time and time again, you and I talk about home ownership, but I mean, the latest figures are just grim. I mean, what's been done? Because there is that idea and sentiment that we are truly being consigned to a life of long-term renting.
So a number of things are being done, and you've seen just yesterday some of the announcements around RMA changes,
Exciting.
which amongst other things are there to improve the speed and reduce the compliance in a safe way that we can build houses as well as other infrastructure. Later this week, I'm going down to Christchurch to look at some of the Pacific home building activities down there.
Hmm. We can
Having already seen the Porirua efforts and the South Auckland efforts, I'll now be looking at so there are a number of specific things that we do within the Ministry for Pacific People's portfolio that focuses on the needs of housing for Pacific people, a low housing uptake, particularly for housing ownership amongst Pacific peoples. We support that by a range of initiatives, right from financial literacy to budgeting. So a number of the tools to get into home ownership. But of course, what the high value revenue and all the other things that we do to look at reduce the cost of living for New Zealanders and for Pacific people so that they have more money in their pocket, so that they'll be able to direct more towards home ownership. Just noting, when we came to government, I believe inflation was around 7%. It's now down to 2%. And of course, that's got a direct impact on interest rates and therefore mortgages.
Absolutely. Look, I'm the eternal optimist, and always say better days are ahead. But with that in mind, I mean, you did mention the RMA reform there, and I'm very excited about it. I think it's fantastic. Slash the red tape, all that jazz. I mean, with that in mind, just very quickly, just a soundbite from you on that. You think that that will open the gateway for more Pacific ownership?
Yes, I do. I think there'll be a number of direct and indirect mechanisms whereby Pacific home ownership will improve because fundamentally, if we reduce the compliance and, as you heard Minister Bishop say, move from a no environment to how do we get to yes, that should facilitate quality housing and that will benefit Pacific people. So yes, I do believe that the policies announced yesterday are a step towards improving Pacific home ownership.
Happy days. Final question for you on tertiary education. I'm not actually for how much this falls under your scope or your realm, but I mean, there's the suggestion that's been floated throughout the news in the past few days around whether 2.7 billion, well, million, what was it? Is it billion or million? You can clarify that for me.
Billion.
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 Okay. With that in mind, is that actually enough?
Look, I'm not going to preempt what budget may do.
Sure.
But what I will observe is that initial suggestions are that we have an explosion of students into the tertiary sector this year. Now, this often happens when we have unemployment rising. People decide that it's a good time to train and to raise their level of skills, and that's a good thing. So just noting, and numbers still to be confirmed, but across the board, across most institutions, but particularly universities and Wānanga, substantial increase in students, maybe more than we have seen for some period of time, to how we can accommodate those students. A significant increase in international students too, which is also good for everyone, actually. So as those numbers confirm, we'll work that out and weave that into budget 25.
Does that not reinforce the need for, say, te Pūkenga? I mean, I was never a fan of a mega merger in the first place, but I mean, does this not reinforce it?
No, something that's broken, why we want to reinforce that. So
Yeah, no, that's a fair point.
something that has spent more time on the form makes no sense to me. And Minister Simmons has worked for some period of time to look at how we can reform and reset what I think most people would qualify as disaster. I challenge you to find one person who say Te Pūkenga has been the best thing ever for education New Zealand.
You know, that's a fair point. I myself think it was a dog's breakfast. Hey, thank you very much for your time. That was Dr. Shane Reti. I live for these conversations. You have a good rest of your day, eh?
You do, buddy.